Section 6 of the Penny Magazine of the Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge, Issue 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Betty B. The Penny Magazine of the Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge, Issue 2, by Charles Knight. The British Museum. The characteristic of the English populace, perhaps we ought to say people, for it extends to the middle classes, is their propensity to mischief. The people of most other countries may safely be admitted into parks, gardens, public buildings, and galleries of pictures and statues, but in England it is necessary to exclude them as much as possible from all such places. This is a sentence from the last published number of the Quarterly Review. Severe as it is, there is much truth in it. The fault is not entirely on the side of the people. We will not use the offensive term populace, but still they are in fault. The writer adds, speaking of this love of mischief, which he calls a disgraceful part of the English character, that anything tends to correct it that contributes to give the people a taste for intellectual pleasures, anything that contributes to their innocent enjoyment, anything that excites them to wholesome and pleasurable activity of body and mind. This is quite true. We hope to do something, speaking generally, to excite and gratify a taste for intellectual pleasure, but we wish to do more in this particular case. We wish to point out many inexpensive pleasures of the very highest order, which all those who reside in London have within their reach, and how the education of themselves and of their children may be advanced by using their opportunities of enjoying some of the purest gratifications which an instructed mind is capable of receiving. Having learnt to enjoy them, they will naturally feel an honest pride in the possession, by the nation, of many of the most valuable treasures of art and of science, and they will hold that person a baby in mind, a spoiled, wilful, mischievous baby, who dares to attempt the slightest injury to the public property, which has been collected together at an immense expense for the public advantage. Well, then, that we may waste no time in general discussion, let us begin with the British Museum. We will suppose ourselves addressing an artisan or tradesman who can sometimes afford to take a holiday, and who knows there are better modes of spending a working day, which he some half dozen times a year devotes to pleasure, than amidst the smoke of a tap-room, or the din of a skittle-ground. He is a family man. He enjoys the pleasure doubly if it is shared by his wife and children. Well then, in Great Russell Street, Bloomsbury, is the British Museum, and here, from 10 o'clock till 4, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, he may see many of the choicest productions of ancient art, Egyptian, Grecian, and Roman monuments, and what will probably please the young people most, in the first instance, a splendid collection of natural history, quadrupeds, birds, insects, shells, all classed and beautifully disposed in an immense gallery, lately built by the government for the more convenient exhibition of these curiosities. But hold, says the working man, I have passed by the British Museum. There are 2 sentinels at the gateway, and the large gates are always closed. Will they let me in? Is there nothing to pay? That is a very natural question about the payment, for there is too much of paying in England by the people for admission to what they ought to see for nothing. But here there is nothing to pay. Knock boldly at the gate, the porter will open it. You are in a large square courtyard, with an old-fashioned house occupying 3 sides. A flight of steps leads up to the principal entrance. Go on. Do not fear any surly looks or impertinent glances from any person in attendance. You are upon safe ground here. You are come to see your own property. You have as much right to see it, and you are as welcome therefore to see it, as the highest in the land. There is no favor in showing it to you. You assist in paying for the purchase and the maintenance of it, and one of the very best effects that could result from that expense would be to teach every Englishman to set a proper value upon the enjoyments which such public property is capable of affording. Go boldly forward then. The officers of the museum, who are obliging to all strangers, will be glad to see you. Your garb is homely, you think, as you see gaily dressed persons going in and out. No matter, you and your wife and your children are clean, if not smart. By the way, it will be well to mention that very young children, those under 8 years old, are not admitted, and that for a very sufficient reason. In most cases they would disturb the other visitors. You are now in the great hall, a lofty room with a fine staircase. In an adjoining room a book is presented to you, in which one of a party has to write his name and address, with the number of persons accompanying him. That is the only form you have to go through, and it is a necessary form, for it were only to preserve a record of the number of persons admitted. In each year this number amounts to about 70,000. So you see that the British Museum has afforded pleasure and improvement to a great many people. We hope the number of visitors will be doubled and trebled, for exhibitions such as these do a very great deal for the advance of a people in knowledge and virtue. What reasonable man would abandon himself to low gratifications, to drinking or gambling, when he may, whenever he pleases, and as often as he pleases, at no cost but that of his time, enjoy the sight of some of the most curious and valuable things in the world, with as much ease as a prince walking about in his own private gallery? But that he may enjoy these treasures, and that everybody else may enjoy them at the same time, it will be necessary to observe a few simple rules. First, touch nothing. The statues and other curious things which are in the museum are to be seen, not to be handled. If visitors were to be allowed to touch them, to try whether they were hard or soft, to scratch them, to write upon them with their pencils, they would be soon worth very little. You will see some mutilated remains of 2 or 3 of the finest figures that ever were executed in the world. They form part of the collection called the Elgin marbles, and were brought from the Temple of Minerva at Athens, which city at the time of the sculpture of these statues, about 2,300 years ago, was one of the cities of Greece most renowned for art and learning. Time has, of course, greatly worn these statues, but it is said that the Turkish soldiers, who kept the modern Greeks under subjection, used to take a brutal pleasure in the injury of these remains of ancient art, as if they were glad to destroy what their ignorance made them incapable of valuing. Is it not as great ignorance for a stupid fellow of our own day slyly to write his own paltry name upon one of these glorious monuments? Is not such an act the most severe reproach upon the writer? Is it not as if the scribbler should say, "Here I am, in the presence of some of the great masterpieces of art, whose antiquity ought to produce reverence, if I cannot comprehend their beauty, and I derive a pleasure from putting my own obscure, perishable name upon works whose fame will endure forever." What a satire upon such vanity! Doubtless, these fellows, who are so pleased with their own weak selves as to poke their names into every face, are nothing but grown babies, and want a fool's cap most exceedingly. Secondly, do not talk loud. Talk, of course, you must, or you would lose much of the enjoyment we wish you to have, for pleasure is only half pleasure unless it be shared with those we love. But do not disturb others with your talk. Do not call loudly from one end of a long gallery to the other, or you will distract the attention of those who derive great enjoyment from an undisturbed contemplation of the wonders in these rooms. You will excuse this hint. Thirdly, be not obtrusive. You will see many things in the museum that you do not understand. It will be well to make a memorandum of these, to be inquired into at your leisure, and in these inquiries we shall endeavor to assist you from time to time. But do not trouble other visitors with your questions, and above all, do not trouble the young artists, some of whom you will see making drawings for their improvement. Their time is precious to them, and it is a real inconvenience to be obliged to give their attention to anything but their work, or to have their attention disturbed by an over-curious person peeping at what they are doing. If you want to make any inquiry, go to one of the attendants, who walks about in each room. He will answer you as far as he knows. You must not expect to understand what you see all at once. You must go again and again if you wish to obtain real knowledge, beyond the gratification of passing curiosity. In future numbers we shall briefly mention what is most worthy your attention in this national collection. Section 7.